The case, a routine workers' comp surveillance case. The client just wanted to know how he was doing and see if he displayed any injuries. According to the records provided, his back injuries left him in excruciating pain 24/7 all of the time, not able to lift anything over 1 pound, nor could he stand for more than 5 minutes or drive his vehicles at all. Now, the subject was a very tall man in his early 40s, about 6 foot 6 inches tall and very skinny. Despite his height, he weighed right around 180 pounds. We also obtained information through our OSINT investigation that led us to believe he liked to wear fancy hats, so he should be able to be picked out of a crowd fairly easily. The problem with the entire case, though, was that the client could not provide us with a current address for him. We often find ourselves in the situation where we have to find the subject first, then conduct the surveillance. We did the usual locate stuff. We ran him in our databases, ran an open source intelligence OSINT investigation on him, and discovered several social platforms that he was on. So we had plenty of photos of him, photos of his vehicles, and a good list of active friends and family. After scouring through all of our information, we noticed he and his mother seemed to be fairly active on Facebook, and many times it appeared that they were on the same days and the same times. It also appeared that they got together often for holidays, birthdays, and other special occasions. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. Now, Labor Day was just around the corner, so we decided to focus on that. I went out and I did some recon at several family members and friends' houses a couple of days prior. He had 2 vehicles registered to him as the owner. One, an old van that did not have a current license plate, and a 4-door sedan with a current registration, but registered to an old address. I first went to an address that I believed was his girlfriend's. I found her car, but none associated with him. I did a little stakeout for a couple of hours. I did indeed see her, and I followed her to the grocery store and back, but I never did see any signs of him. I then tried a couple of friends' houses to no avail. His brother's house, but there was no observations of him there. On to the parents' house next, and wouldn't you know it, there it was, that old beat-up van with expired plates registered to my subject, parked on the dirt next to the driveway. It appeared that van had been sitting there for years. Well, it wasn't anything definite, but it was a good start. At least I knew he still had some form of ties to his parents' house. I did a few hours surveillance there that day, but I never did see him or his parents. Labor Day rolls around. I get up early in the morning. I grab my gear. I cross my fingers and I head out the door. When I arrived at his parents', I was pleasantly surprised to see the van was still present. 2 vehicles registered to his parents were there. A truck registered to his brother was present, and my subject's 4-door sedan was there, sitting on the street directly in front of the parents' house. I love it when a plan comes together. I got all set up in a good spot, and I started my surveillance. I found a nice spot under a nice shady tree where I could watch out my rear window and grab all of the video that I needed if he came out. Now, a lesson to be learned here, folks, about shady spots. They are not always shady all day long. By noon, I was sitting in full sun, and it was an oven inside my car. Now, I had my regular summer gear with me. I had my cooler with plenty of ice and water bottles. I had my rag to dampen and keep myself cool. I had my swampy portable space cooler. I had my 12-volt DC fan, but sitting in full sun is still very brutal, to say the least. Not so lucky for me that day. My subject came out of his parents' house one time to get something out of his car and then went back inside, never to be seen again. Yep, 8 hours sitting in one spot, frying my brain, and I got about 75 seconds of video, but it was great video. He appeared to walk fine, open the car door fine, he bent over into his car fine, and you know what? I was just fine with that. After updating my client, we decided he may be living at his parents' since he had 2 cars there, so we scheduled a second day on it. I went out the next day, and the van was there, but not his other car. I saw his parents leaving their cars, but never saw him. The 3rd day rolls around. Yep, no sign of him. I then started making my rounds at the other potential addresses for his friends and family. I finally found his car at his brother's house. I get hold of my client, let them know, and they say, go ahead and work that address the next day. The next day rolls around. I get up early, I grab my gear, and I head out. I arrived on scene, and his vehicle was nowhere to be found. Now, I had noticed he was active on Facebook a lot in the evenings, and many times would be with his girlfriend. So we decided to set up some evening surveillance at his girlfriend's and see if we could locate him there. We finally got lucky. The 3rd evening, it was a Friday. He shows up, he picks her up, and then they go off to dinner. Their dinner date was in a town over an hour away. After dinner, they went to a nearby shopping mall and did some shopping. Then they went to an apartment building, and they went up to a third floor apartment. I am like, gotcha. I figured out where he's living most likely. Now, the sweet thing was this apartment building had all of the stairs outside, so I could get video of him as he walked up and down those stairs up to the apartment and back down. The next morning rolls around and I got up bright and early and his car was still there. I was very happy. I found a nice location about 2 blocks away where I could watch across the parking lot. I could see his car and I could see the stairs leading up to the apartment. I got plenty of video of him that day as he and his girlfriend left. They got breakfast, they went to the grocery store, and they returned to the apartment. Then I followed them back to her apartment over an hour away, and then I ended my day there. It was successful indeed. The client was ecstatic with the results. So the case comes back and I am ready to go. I get out early in the morning and there is no sign of his car anywhere. I figured maybe he's working somewhere or something. So I pull off after a few hours and I plan to go out the next day. The next morning rolls around. I go out even earlier in case he went to work. And yep, you guessed it, no sign of him. I tried a few spot checks throughout the week in the evenings and at night and never did see his car there again. Back to the grind again. I went around to relatives and friends' houses. I found his car at his parents' house. So I set up surveillance and I waited and I waited and I waited, and then suddenly he comes out. He has a big smile on his face, his girlfriend at his side. They get in his car and away they go. The chase is on. I followed them all the way back to his apartment over an hour away. I get set up and I figured they were staying there for a while, but wait. After about an hour, I see him coming down the stairs carrying several large bags of stuff. He throws them into the back seat of his car and then he heads back up. Next, here he comes again, carrying a couple of boxes of things along with his girlfriend. They put the stuff into the car, then they head back up. This goes on for several hours. Then they get in the car and away they go. I followed them back to his parents' house where he parks the car. Then he gets out and he gets into that beat up old van of his and he cranks and he cranks and he cranks that van over and finally, boom, it starts and his girlfriend gets in and they head out in that old van and away we go. Now I followed them over an hour all the way back to that apartment and I am like, okay. They carry out a bunch more boxes and bags of stuff and put them into the van. Then suddenly here he comes. She opens the door for him. He walks out slowly carrying a big screen TV all by himself. His girlfriend holds the door open for him. Then she scurries down the stairs and opens up the back door of the van. Then she guides him as he carries that huge TV. He carried that thing down with absolute precision, down 3 flights of stairs with a turn at each floor, then out to the parking lot to the van, and he gently places that big screen TV into the van by himself. Now I am floored at this point. I mean, what the heck? He can do that, but he can't work? Seriously? I then follow them back to his parents where his girlfriend gets into his car and they both drive over to her place. I then get the pleasure of capturing more video of him carrying everything inside, including that big screen TV, with her guiding him as he carried it in by himself. Now, I am not sure if he was carrying it himself because he was showing off because she couldn't carry anything, or maybe it was his prized possession and he wasn't going to let anybody else handle it. Nonetheless, I got my video, I got the money shot, and I got the case back about 6 more times.